Welcome to Texas, 1867, where your first memory isn't of candies or toys, but the distinct smell of manure that'll follow you for the rest of your life. Congratulations, you've been born into the least glamorous job in the American West. Those dime novels about heroic gunslingers? Pure fantasy. Your reality is going to involve a whole lot more cow dung and a whole lot less glory. By age 4, you're already learning the family business. Not because anyone's particularly eager to teach you, but because extra hands are needed and you're the closest pair available. Your toys are practical tools, a worn-out lariat and a half-broken bridle, and your playmates are the calves that need feeding. While city kids are learning their ABCs, you're learning which end of a cow kicks the hardest. First lesson of cowboy life hits you at age 6, when you watch your father come home with 3 broken ribs from a spooked horse. There's no doctor within 50 miles, so your mother just wraps him up with strips of old shirts and gets him back to work the next day. That's when you learn the cowboy's golden rule. You're not hurt enough to stop unless you're dead. Your education is practical, to say the least. Reading and writing take a backseat to more essential skills, like how to tell if a snake is poisonous before it tells you itself, or how to make coffee strong enough to wake up a dead man, which, given the hours you'll be working, is exactly what you'll need. Congratulations, you've just turned 13, and you're about to start your first real job as the lowest rank in the cowboy hierarchy. Your yearly salary? A whopping $25, which works out to about 7 cents a day. Welcome to the bottom rung of the ladder, kid. Home is now a crowded bunkhouse where you share space with a dozen unwashed cowboys. Your bed is a crude mattress stuffed with straw, and your pillow is your saddle. When you actually get to sleep, that is. See, as the newest and youngest, you get all the jobs nobody else wants, starting with the 3 a.m. shift of watching the horses. Speaking of horses, they're your constant companions now. Your job is to manage the remuda, the backup horses for the real cowboys. Each cowhand needs 3 to 4 fresh horses per day. And guess who's responsible for keeping track of about 50 half-wild broncs in the dark? That's right, you. One lost horse means a day's wages gone. The veterans don't make it easy either. "Hey, Greenie," they shout, tossing you a rawhide lariat that's stiffer than a frozen rope. "Let's see if you can catch that bay mare." What they don't tell you is that the mare's been playing this game with rookies for years. At least the dirt is soft when you faceplant. But slowly, through endless repetition and more than a few bruises, you're learning how to read a horse's intentions by the flick of its ears, how to throw a loop that actually catches something besides your own foot, how to stay awake in the saddle even when your whole body feels like one giant bruise. Welcome to Cowboy Finishing School. The graduation means surviving long enough to get a real shot at handling cattle. Finally, you graduated from horse wrangler to full-fledged trailhand on the Chisholm Trail. 1,000 miles of pure misery stretches between you and Kansas, with 3,000 cattle that seem determined to die in the most creative ways possible. Your pay? $1 a day, assuming you make it to Abilene without getting yourself killed first. Nobody warned you about the storms. Out here on the plains, lightning doesn't just strike. It puts on a show that would make the devil himself nervous. Your slicker's about as waterproof as a fishing net. That expensive new hat you bought, it now looks like something the cattle stepped on, which they probably did. Meals are a special kind of torture, courtesy of the camp cook and his rickety wagon kitchen, the chuck wagon, as everyone calls it. Breakfast is coffee strong enough to float a horseshoe, beans, and biscuits that could double as ammunition. Dinner is, well, beans. Again, maybe with some salt pork if you're lucky. And lunch? That's what the dust is for filling your belly while you ride. Then there's the Texas quick step. That's what cowboys politely call dysentery when ladies are around. Bad water, spoiled food, and no chance to wash your hands means your guts are constantly at war with whatever you manage to eat. No rest stops on the trail either. You just keep riding and praying you can clench tight enough to make it through your shift. More than one good cowhand has been found face down in the dirt. Not from a bullet or a bronc, but from something as simple as drinking from the wrong stream. Your daily routine is brutally simple. Up at 3 a.m. for the morning watch, saddle a fresh horse, and push the herd from dawn to dusk. 15 miles is a good day, assuming nothing goes wrong. But something always goes wrong. Maybe it's a stampede triggered by a lightning strike, or a river crossing where the current's running higher than expected. Each disaster is a unique blend of terror and exhaustion, served with a side of wet saddle sores. Night watch is its own special hell. 2 hours of riding circles around sleeping cattle, singing off-key to keep them calm. Your throat's raw from dust and bad coffee. Your backside feels like it's been sandpapered, and you're so tired you start hallucinating that the cows are playing poker. But you can't fall asleep. One snoozing cowboy can mean a stampede that costs everyone their wages. River crossings are when you earn every cent of that $1-a-day wage. Quicksand, sudden drop-offs, and bandit cattle make every crossing a gamble. You've seen good cowboys disappear under those muddy waters. Their bodies found downstream days later. The cattle, they're worth more than you are. About $40 a head in Abilene. You're replaceable. They aren't. Back at the ranch, winter hits like a hammer. That one-room bunkhouse you share with a dozen others, its walls have more holes than your socks. And that tiny stove burns through firewood faster than your wages burn through your pocket. At least the body heat from 14 unwashed cowboys keeps the place above freezing, mostly. Your day starts in the dark, breaking ice on water troughs with numb fingers. That fancy rope trick you learned? Useless when your lariat's frozen stiff as a poker. The cattle need feeding regardless of the weather, and the hay doesn't move itself. Your whole life becomes an endless cycle of hauling feed, thawing water, and praying none of the herd decides to die in a snowdrift. Spring brings its own special brand of misery, roundup time. Time to find every calf born over winter, brand them, and doctor the ones that survived but wish they hadn't. Your pay stays the same, $25 a month, while the ranch owner sells each calf for $40. The math isn't hard, even for a cowboy who never finished school. Then there's the fences. Miles of them, thanks to that newfangled barbed wire. Every broken strand needs fixing. Every post that heaves from the frost needs resetting. The wire bites through your gloves like they're paper, leaving your hands look like you've been wrestling wildcats. They say the invention of the barbed wire civilized the West. They never mentioned it also turned cowboys into glorified handymen. Nights are the worst. The isolation creeps in with the darkness, broken only with the occasional letter from home, if you can still write well enough to read your own address. The nearest town's a 2-day ride, and that's assuming good weather. Your social life consists of Saturday night poker games where you lose what little money you've saved, but at least it breaks the monotony of talking to your horse. Life in the bunkhouse is a crash course in social dynamics nobody prepared you for. Being one of 4 white cowboys among black, Mexican, and Native American cowhands teaches you quick that skill matters more than skin color when a stampede's bearing down. Though back in town, those same men who saved your life last week can't drink at the same saloon as you. One of the bitter pills you're forced to swallow. Saturday nights in the bunkhouse tell the real story of a cowboy's prospects. Old Pete's been riding these ranges for 30 years. And what's he got to show for it? A bad back, a tin cup, and enough stories to fill a book nobody will ever write. The young ones still dream of owning their own spread someday, but the math's against them. A small ranch costs more than they'll earn in 20 years of cowboying. Marriage? That's a luxury few cowboys can afford. The ranch owner's daughter might smile at you during Sunday service, but her father's got plans that don't include a dirt poor cowhand. Most ranches won't even hire married cowboys. Can't have family obligations getting in the way of your work. Your best prospect for female company is the cook's cross-eyed niece who visits once a year. The social ladder is shorter than a broken laureate. Trail boss is about as high as you can climb, and those positions usually go to the owner's relatives. Meanwhile, every season brings a new crop of eager youngsters willing to work for even less than you make. The cowboy's golden rule becomes clear. The only way up is out. But where do you go when all you know is cows and horses? By 40, you're already an old man in a young man's game. Your joints predict the weather better than any barometer. And that shoulder you dislocated in 73 screams every time you rope a steer. The youngsters call you old-timer now, though you notice they quiet down when storm clouds gather, hoping to learn from your weather-worn wisdom. The world changing faster than a spring storm rolls in. Barbed wires carved up the open range. Railroads have shortened the long drives, and those newfangled automobiles are starting to spook the horses. The era of the open range cowboy is fading, like morning mist on the prairie. But here's the thing about being a cowboy. It was never really about the glory or the freedom folks write about in those dime novels. It was about doing what needed doing, no matter how hard or thankless. Every scar, every broken bone, every endless night watch taught the same lesson. True grit isn't about being tough. It's about being tough enough to keep going when everything tells you to quit. Maybe that's the real legacy of the American cowboy. Not the myths or the legends, but the simple truth that some things are worth doing right. Even when they're harder than breaking a wild Mustang. Even when they suck.